Okay, good morning. This is warm-up number 4. We're just doing a review over the trig ratios, how to set it up. So notice in this example, you don't see the stick man anywhere in this picture, okay? So for me to find the sine of A, cosine of A, tangent of A, notice that each one of these have the angle A as their reference point. So that is where I'm going to draw my little stick man. That's how I determine where he's going to be at, okay? Whatever the angle is that they're asking you. Because remember on your test, you're not going to have the little stick man drawn anywhere. You have to figure out where to put him at. So once I do that, then it makes finding the sine, cosine, and tangent a little bit easier. But there is a problem. We have the length of the hypotenuse, which we know is this side right here. Okay, we know what that is. And we also know the length of the opposite side is 2. But we do not know what the length of the adjacent side is. So does anybody know what I can use to find the measurement from A to M? What would this length be? Alright, it should have made you go back to Pythagorean's theorem. So that's the first thing I need to do. I need to go back to Pythagorean's theorem so that I can find the length from A to M. Remember, if you're given two sides, you can find the third side anytime you need to by using Pythagorean's theorem. So that's what I'm going to do here. So remember, Pythagorean's theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared, where c is the hypotenuse. So I know that I have a over here is equal to 2 because a is normally the vertical piece. B is what I'm solving for. I don't know what b is. And c is equal to 5. So now I can plug into Pythagorean's theorem. So a is 2, so that's 2 squared plus b squared equals 5 squared because c is the hypotenuse, which is 5. Alright, 2 squared is the same thing as 2 times 2, which is 4. And 5 squared is the same thing as 5 times 5, which is 25. So I solved this by subtracting 4 on both sides. So b squared is equal to 21. But remember, we're solving for b, not b squared. So I have to get rid of this square by taking the square root. You guys have to remember to do that in your last step. So b equals the square root of 21. And I'm just going to leave it just like that, okay? Let me clear up my figure now. Okay, so down here, I know that b equals the square root of 21, and that is the length of this side, okay? So remember, this was my opposite side. I got the O. This side was the hypotenuse, and this side over here is going to be the adjacent side. So I'm going to put an A on this side for adjacent. Now that we know the measurement of all the sides, we can now write our trig ratios. So remember the sine. I'm going to write SOHCAHTOA over here. Because that's going to help me set up each one of my ratios. Alright, so the sine of A is going to equal to the opposite side, which is 2, divided by the hypotenuse, which is 5. And that's it. The cosine of A is going to equal to the adjacent side, which is the square root of 21, divided by the hypotenuse, which is 5. The tangent of A is going to equal to opposite, which is 2, divided by the adjacent, which is the square root of 21. And it's okay to have the square root of 21 as part of my answers. You're going to see on your CDA, sometimes they present your answers as radicals, which is what this is, square root of 21. and sometimes they present them as decimals. So if you wanted to see the decimal of what the square root of 21 is, you can just put that in your calculator. That is second, and x squared will give you the radical, and then you just type in 21 and press enter. It will give you the decimal. Alright, so at the bottom we're reviewing our rule that we learned about the cosine and the sine cofunctions. So if I'm looking for the cosine of C and they say that C is 20 degrees, that means I'm looking for the cosine of 20 degrees, because look, they said C is 20. So I just plugged that in for C. So the cosine of 20 degrees is equal to what? Remember, we have to do the sine of the other angle that when we add it to 20 gives me 90 degrees. This was in our first lesson when we first learned trig ratios. So if this one is 20 degrees, what does the degree measurement of the sine have to equal? 70 degrees. And remember, it's only cosine and sine that go together like this, okay? So cosine of 20, sine of 70. Their degree measurements have to add to equal 90 degrees, and 20 plus 70 gives me 90. So that's it. That's just a quick review of our trig ratios and our cofunction with sine and cosine. You do not have a cofunction. We did not learn a property for cosine and tangent or two cosines. It has to be one sine, one cosine, and their degrees have to add to 90 degrees. Okay? So make sure you put this in your warm-up and you have it titled correctly, warm-up number 4, because we will have a notebook check on our last unit 2C and this unit, unit 3, when we come back from Christmas break. Okay? So that will be one of the first things that we do in the new year, is take our notebook checks, and there will be 2 of them because we haven't done a notebook check for the last 2 units. Make sure your date is correct. For even classes, that you're going to do this on December the 6th, and for odd classes, you're going to do this on December the 7th. Okay? Thank you so much, and please continue to be good and continue to do your work for Ms. Hall.